There's a way to destroy a man without ever raising your voice. No shouting, no hitting, no chaos. Just silence. A sigh. A single glance that says, "You're not enough." You feel it in your chest before she even speaks. That quiet, sharp disappointment that burns deeper than any insult could. She doesn't need to scream. Her silence screams for about her. And in that moment, you start shrinking. You start doubting. You start dying a little. You tell yourself she's just tired, just emotional, just human. But deep down, you know something's breaking. Not your relationship, you. It doesn't happen overnight. It's slow, surgical. 1,000 tiny cuts disguised as love, as concern, as just being honest. You keep adjusting. You try harder. You talk softer. You give more. And still, nothing's ever enough. Her happiness becomes your full-time job. Her moods, your daily report card. You start existing for her approval, like a prisoner begging his guard for mercy. But here's the truth nobody told you. It's not the arguments that destroy men. It's the quiet, the sighs, the subtle looks that drain your soul one moment at a time. This isn't about her. It's about you. Because somewhere along the way, you stopped being yourself. And this is the moment you wake up. It doesn't start with shouting. It starts with the small things, the sighs, the glances, the questions that sound harmless but cut deep. You don't even notice it at first. You think she's just having a bad day. You tell yourself it's normal, that every relationship has tension. But slowly, without realizing it, you start to change. You start to measure your words before you speak. You start to second-guess simple things. What you wear, how you act, even how you breathe around her. You're not living freely anymore. You're performing. You used to walk through your front door feeling like a man. Now, you walk in feeling like you're on trial. Every move you make feels like evidence waiting to be used against you. You fix something in the house and she calls it the bare minimum. You stay late at work and she says you care more about your job than her. You come home early and she says you're suffocating her. Every choice becomes the wrong one, no matter how pure your intention. So you start to play defense. You think if you just explain yourself better, she'll understand. If you stay calm, if you're patient, if you keep proving that you're good, maybe she'll finally relax. But she doesn't, because this isn't about logic. It's about control. You become addicted to her approval, like a gambler chasing the next win that never comes. You keep giving, hoping this time will be different. But the more you give, the less she sees you. The more you bend, the more she pushes. It's not the volume of her words that breaks you. It's the tone, that quiet disappointment, that look that says, "You failed me again." You start to crave peace more than happiness. You'll do anything to avoid another sigh, another eye roll, another night spent explaining yourself to someone who's already decided you're wrong. And so you shrink. You lower your voice. You hide your edges. You trade your fire for silence just to keep the house calm. But here's what no one tells you. Every time you silence yourself, a piece of you dies. Every time you apologize just to keep the peace, you're teaching her that your boundaries don't matter. And little by little, you disappear. Not in some dramatic explosion, but in quiet moments when you choose comfort over truth. That's how a man gets destroyed. Not by anger, not by betrayal, but by the slow erosion of his own voice, by believing that keeping her happy means losing yourself. That's the lie we've been sold. And the longer you live inside it, the more you forget what it even feels like to be a man. Somewhere along the way, we were taught that a woman's happiness is our responsibility. It wasn't written in any book. No one said it out loud. But it was there, hidden in every movie, every commercial, every story we grew up on. The prince always saves her. The husband always provides. The man always sacrifices. And when she smiles, that's when he knows he's done his job. That's what we learned love was supposed to look like. Her joy as proof of our worth. So we grow up chasing approval like oxygen. We learn to measure success not by what we build, but by how satisfied she seems. If she's happy, we're doing it right. If she's upset, we must. It'd have failed. Every man watching this knows that quiet panic, the moment she changes tone, the moment her expression drops, and you feel that sinking guilt in your stomach, even if you did nothing wrong. It's instinct now, conditioned. You rush to fix it before it turns into something worse. And that's how the trap tightens. You start living through her emotions instead of your own. Her mood becomes your weather, and you start adjusting your life to avoid storms. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start asking, "What will make her happy?" It sounds noble, even romantic, but it's poison disguised as love. Because the more you build your identity around someone else's peace, the less of you remains when that peace is gone. You think being a good man means being selfless. You think patience, tolerance, and endless understanding will earn you love in return. But it doesn't. It only teaches her that your boundaries are negotiable, that you'll take the blame for everything, that your emotions, your exhaustion, your needs, they're optional. You become the emotional janitor cleaning up her messes while pretending it's strength. I've seen men lose decades to this belief. Smart men, strong men. Men who built businesses and raised families, but can't say no without guilt. They think being needed is the same as being loved. But need isn't love, it's dependency. And dependency always demands more. You give your time, your patience, your sanity, and when you're empty, she still wants proof that you care. That's the hidden programming. That's the lie we inherited. We were raised to believe that love is service, that a man's purpose is to keep her world spinning, even if his own falls apart. But real love isn't about submission. It's about balance. It's about two people who lift each other without draining each other dry. If you've forgotten that, you're not weak. You're just following a script that was never written for your survival. It's time to rewrite it. It doesn't happen all at once. It starts subtle, so subtle that you don't even recognize it as devaluation. One day, she stops saying, "Thank you." The next, your effort becomes expected. You work 60 hours a week? That's just what a man does. You fix the leaky sink? Big deal. That's basic. You take the kids to school? That's not love. That's obligation. And soon, everything you do becomes invisible. At first, you laugh it off. You tell yourself she's just stressed. But deep down, something shifts. You start feeling smaller in your own home. You start asking for recognition that never comes. And when you finally get frustrated, she calls you sensitive. She rolls her eyes. She tells you, you're overreacting. And just like that, you start apologizing for needing appreciation at all. That's how the system works. She rewrites the rules so that your effort becomes the minimum and her approval becomes the prize. Gratitude disappears. Affection becomes currency. And you're left chasing moments that used to come naturally. You keep trying to earn back something that should have never been taken away. Respect. But it doesn't stop there. The next phase is control, dressed up as care. It sounds like concern, but it feels like surveillance. Where were you? Who were you with? Why didn't you answer? It's not love, it's a test. every question hides a trap. Every conversation feels like cross-examination. And before you realize it, you're reporting your day like an employee giving updates to a boss you never signed up for. You start changing your behavior preemptively. You delete harmless messages to avoid explaining them. You skip the gym because she might think you're trying to impress someone. You stop meeting friends because you're tired of defending your right to have a life outside her. Slowly, your world gets smaller until she's the center of it. And somehow, that still isn't enough. What's worse is that compliance doesn't earn peace. It kills attraction. The more transparent you are, the more she resents you. The more you bend to keep her calm, the less she respects you. Because deep down, she doesn't want control. She wants to feel your strength. She wants to know she can't bend you completely, but she can't help herself. She keeps testing, and every time you fold, she loses a little more desire, even if she doesn't understand why. By then, you've lost track of how it started. You tell yourself it's normal, that this is what love looks like. Constant compromise, constant correction, constant proving. But love doesn't suffocate. Love doesn't monitor. Love doesn't turn you into a shadow of yourself. You think you're keeping the peace, but what you're really doing is dying quietly. A piece of your confidence, your independence, your masculinity, gone with every apology that shouldn't have been spoken. That's not partnership. That's emotional captivity. And the hardest part, you lock the cage yourself. At some point, peace becomes impossible. Every conversation turns into a minefield. You never know what word, what look, what silence will set her off next. You tell yourself you're just trying to keep things calm. But the truth is, there's no calm left to keep. You're walking through your own home like an intruder in enemy territory. Careful where you step. Careful what you say. Careful how you breathe. She says she hates fighting, but somehow the fights never stop. They start small, a misplaced comment, a forgotten chore, and then spiral into chaos. But the arguments aren't really about the dishes, or the laundry, or your tone of voice. They're about control. They're about keeping you on edge, keeping you defensive, keeping you apologizing. Because a man who's always apologizing is a man who can't see what's happening to him. She's mastered the art of emotional warfare. It's not about shouting, it's precision, psychological. She'll push every button until you snap, and then she'll play the victim. You raise your voice, you're angry, you walk away, you don't care. You try to explain, you're mansplaining. No matter what you do, you lose. Every reaction you give becomes ammunition for her next attack. And after every fight, she'll cry. She'll say she hates the tension, that she just wants to feel close again. You'll believe her. You'll hold her, comfort her, and promise to do better. But it's all part of the loop, because deep down, she doesn't want peace. She wants engagement. Conflict is the only language she knows how to speak. It's how she feels alive, how she feels connected. Without it, she'd have to face her own emptiness, her own dissatisfaction. And it's easier to blame you than face herself. You start to live in a constant state of emotional exhaustion. Every day becomes damage control. You're not building a life anymore. You're just managing explosions. You try to stay rational, but logic doesn't work in a war built on emotion. You try to hold your ground, but she twists your words until you're the villain again. You start wondering if you really are the problem. That's how the control cements itself, not through force, but through confusion. And when you're drained, when you have nothing left to fight with, that's when she resets the game. She'll be sweet again, soft again. She'll act like the woman you fell for. And for a moment, you'll think maybe it's over. Maybe this time it'll get better. But it never does. The sweetness is temporary. It's bait, just enough to keep you hoping. You start to understand that the real destruction doesn't come from one big blow. It comes from 1,000 small battles that never end. It's not your body that's bruised. It's your spirit. It's your will. And the most dangerous part? You still call it love. I watched it happen before I even realized it was happening to me. My brother, one of the strongest men I knew, slowly disappeared right before my eyes. He used to be the kind of man people gravitated toward. Confident, sharp, owned his own business, played guitar, had a group of friends who'd show up for him at any hour. He laughed loud. He lived free. And then he fell in love. At first, it looked perfect. She was charming, smart, loving, the kind of woman who made him feel like he'd finally found peace. But little by little, that peace became permission. Permission to question, to correct, to control. I started noticing the small things. He'd check his phone at every few minutes when we hung out, always afraid of missing her text. He stopped joining us for poker nights. He said she didn't like the energy. Eventually, he stopped coming out at all. Years passed, and the man who once ran his own life was now asking his wife's permission to buy a coffee. He had to explain every expense, every decision, like a child asking a parent for allowance. He turned down a promotion because she said it would take too much time away from home. But when he stayed home, she complained he was always around. It was a trap with no exit, and he didn't even see it. He thought that was love. He thought compromise was proof of devotion. I remember the day I realized he was gone. Not physically, emotionally. We were sitting in his garage, just the two of us. He looked at me and said, "Man, I can't remember the last time I did something just because I wanted to." And he wasn't angry when he said it. He was numb, hollow, like he'd made peace with being small. That's when I understood what real destruction looks like. It's not fire and chaos. It's quiet. It's slow. It's a man forgetting the sound of his own voice. What broke him wasn't her anger. It wasn't even her control. It was the moving target, the constant changing of the rules. One day, she wanted him open and vulnerable. The next, she was disgusted by his weakness. When he shut down, she called him cold. When he spoke up, she called him cruel. No matter what he did, he failed. And every time she moved the goalpost, he ran harder to catch up. Until one day, he just stopped running. Watching him was like watching a mirror version of my own life, just a few years ahead. I saw the cost of living like that, the slow death of pride, of joy, of masculinity. I saw how easy it was to mistake control for love, obedience for peace. And I realized something terrifying. She wasn't destroying him. He was letting her. He was participating in his own erasure. That's when I started asking myself the question every man avoids until it's almost too late. When did I stop being me? There's always a moment when everything breaks. It doesn't come with a fight or a slammed door. It comes in silence. Mine came on a Tuesday night. I had just gotten a promotion, the kind of news that should make a man proud. I came home ready to celebrate. I thought maybe, finally, she'd see me. I told her with a smile, expecting a hug, a word of pride, something. She looked at me for 2 seconds and said, "So I guess this means you'll be home even less now?" That was it. No congratulations, no joy. Just another way to make my success feel like failure. And in that split second, something inside me clicked. It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was clarity. I realized no matter what I achieved, no matter how much I gave, it would never be enough. I wasn't a partner in her eyes. I was a project, a man constantly in need of fixing, proof of her patience, a mirror for her disappointment. That night, I sat alone in the dark and replayed every moment of the past 10 years, every apology I didn't owe, every time I said yes when I wanted to say no, every piece of myself I gave away just to keep the peace. And I realized the truth. She wasn't the one dismantling me. I was. I had handed her the tools. I had traded my self-respect for temporary calm, my silence for her approval, my strength for her comfort. What really destroys a man isn't cruelty. It's confusion. It's being told to open up, only to be called weak. It's being told to be strong, only to be called cold. It's living inside a game where every rule changes the moment you think you've learned it. You stop trying to win. You just try not to lose. But that's how you lose everything. And yet, the most dangerous part isn't when you fight. It's when you stop, when you go quiet, when you stop hoping things will change and start convincing yourself this is normal. You tell yourself she's not that bad. You tell yourself you're lucky. You tell yourself you can handle it. But that's not peace. That's surrender, and it kills you from the inside out. That's when I woke up. Not in some dramatic movie-style moment. Just a quiet realization. This isn't love. This isn't partnership. This is survival. I had been living on autopilot, existing in a life that looked stable from the outside, but felt like slow death on the inside. And the truth hit me harder than anything she ever said. She didn't need to destroy me. I was doing it for her. Every compromise, every silence, every moment I chose her comfort over my truth, I became less of myself. That night, I made a promise. Not to leave. Not yet. But to stop participating in my own destruction. To start remembering the man I was before I learned to apologize for existing. Because that man, the one buried beneath the guilt, the fear, the exhaustion, deserved to live again. When you finally wake up, it's not loud. It's quiet, like the moment after a storm, when the world feels still. But everything looks different. You start to see what was always there. The patterns, the manipulation, the constant shifting of blame. And you realize this truth that hits like a punch to the gut. You've been trying to earn love from someone who only respected your struggle, not your strength. You tell yourself she didn't mean to hurt you, and maybe that's true. But intent doesn't erase impact. What matters is what you've become in the process. Tired, cautious, hollow. You stopped laughing the way you used to. You stopped looking people in the eye. You stopped taking up space in your own life. And all of it because you believed that love meant endurance, that peace meant silence, that being a man meant carrying it all. But now you see it. The cage was never locked. You were just afraid to open it. You were scared of being called selfish, cold, heartless, for daring to live for yourself. Because for years, her disappointment was your leash. Every sigh, every glare, every tear. You thought it meant you had failed. But what if it meant you were finally waking up? The truth is, you don't need her permission to breathe again. You don't need to explain your every move, or apologize for wanting space, or beg for appreciation that should come freely. You don't need to keep proving your worth to someone who's built an entire story around your inadequacy. You just have to stop playing the role she wrote for you. That doesn't make you cruel. It makes you free. Freedom isn't rage. It isn't revenge. It's clarity. It's standing up, looking in the mirror, and remembering that you matter, that your peace matters, that your voice, your time, your energy. They belong to you. It's saying no without guilt, yes without fear, and walking away without apology. Some people will call you the bad guy for doing that. They'll say you gave up too soon. They'll say you abandoned her. But what they'll never see are the years you spent trying, explaining, fixing, shrinking. They won't understand that leaving destruction isn't betrayal, it's survival. And maybe she'll change, maybe she won't, but that's not your burden anymore. Because love that demands your silence isn't love, it's dependency. Love that costs your self-respect isn't devotion, it's control. Real love doesn't drain you, it builds you. It celebrates your victories, shares your failures, and never punishes you for being human. So here's the choice. Keep dying a little more each day to make her comfortable. Or choose yourself. For once, walk toward the version of you that remembers what freedom feels like. The man who doesn't chase approval. The man who leads with peace, not guilt. You only get one life. Don't waste it explaining your existence to someone who benefits from your confusion. Stop participating in your own destruction. Reclaim your fire. Reclaim your voice. Reclaim your damn life. Because real love doesn't make you smaller. It makes you whole.